Um, Very quickly before we jump in, so for everyone kind of understands where we are called ecospirits. We are not a spirit producer. We do not produce alcohol. We do not sell alcohol. We do not distribute alcohol either. What we do is that we develop, manufacture, and sell hardware, packaging, if you will, to package beverages into and provide a license and a software support to track and navigate the actual individual pieces of the distribution of the packaging throughout the actual value chain, or if you will, through the distribution network, if that makes sense. And so, what I'm going to talk about here is a solution for anyone who is in a beverage of any sorts. We don't do non-alcoholic yet, although our engineers are working on it. But spirits, predominantly liqueurs and wine, we can do. And that's what we're gonna kind of talk about now is to how our technology can deliver on waste reduction as well as commercial benefits, and obviously with waste reduction and logistics optimization, a carbon emission reduction as well. As I mentioned before, I started in the hospitality industry itself. There is multiple people behind this project. We started in 2016 when we developed just a high conceptual idea of um, is there a different way how we can bring liquor around the world in a packaging which doesn't have to be thrown away. It all started with our very first endeavor, and that's a bar in Singapore called 28 Hong Kong Street, which we still run and operate until today. We just celebrated 14 years. And being from, living in London and in big cities before, you don't really realize or you don't see it as in your face like you do in Singapore, which is a tiny little island in the middle of a Southeast Asia sea, how and where all of the waste from all of the bars and restaurants and hotels goes to every single day. And it kind of brings me to the first slide, and that is the numbers in terms of single-use packaging used on annual basis throughout the world. The number on the left is ginormous, 689 billion. That is including baby formulas and beers and water and there's a joke I like to say. It's that we people and humans got to the point where we ship water over water to places where we already have a water. If I go have a dinner in Miami, where I used to live, for example, and I drink Italian San Pellegrino, it's an interesting concept of how and why that needs to happen. And so, in terms of packaging, um, in a beverage, you can see there is a lot of waste there. Specifically in a wine and spirits alone, it's a 70 billion glass bottles. And I don't know how many of you guys are aware of how many glass bottles fits into a shipping container. If you take the standard 20-foot shipping container, which sits on the international freight ships, that can fit roughly around 10,000 glass bottles, 10,000 final packages, which are then used in bars and restaurants. If you divide 10,000, 70 billion, that's a lot of containers of glass, which is thrown away every single day. Now, a lot of people will come back and say, well, there's recycling. And of course, we recycle. Well, if we look at it from a global perspective, sadly, the recycling is not as good as we would all hope so. I think that if we would ask anyone who is not living and breathing packaging solutions, I would say that most people would say, well, at least 50% of the overall packaging is recycled in terms of glass. Well, it's not the case. Plus, glass has a different caveat to it, and that is the nature of how much of an energy do we need to use to actually recycle the container to be able to be reused again, right? If you look at something like aluminum can, for example, to transport empty aluminum can, very light. doesn't take that much of a gas, and therefore doesn't create that much of a carbon emission to a point where we can recycle it. Aluminum itself is very soft metal and usually does not have any other materials attached to it, so it's not contaminated, if you will, and therefore it can be very easily recycled and made into a new can. We're talking single digits in terms of percentage of carbon emissions created by taking a used can and making it into a new can through recycling process. If we would replicate the same process for a glass bottle, any vodka or gin or whiskey, etc., we are in very different numbers. And that's because the glass itself, when it's empty with no liquid in it, is not light, it's pretty heavy. And therefore, moving it into a place where recycling plant for glass is, it requires for a bit of gas to do so. After that, it has a label on it. Doesn't matter what material it is. Under the label is another material, the glue, which actually holds the label on the bottle. All of that needs to be stripped away and fully cleaned. Otherwise, it's considered contaminated. And therefore, that takes a lot of hot water, detergents, that needs to be then recycled, cleaned, etc. And lastly, we need 1300 Celsius, which is roughly 2,500 Fahrenheit for those who work and live in Fahrenheit degrees, um, to mold the actual glass and then recycle. If in Thanksgiving season, if you make your turkey, you are looking at a 380, 400 Fahrenheit or lower. Uh, Looking at 2000 plus, that requires a lot of energy to actually get to those temperatures. And so I'm not saying that glass should be not used at all, and I'm not saying that glass shouldn't be recycled. It's always better than throwing it into landfill because it takes roughly 10,000 years for the glass to disintegrate in a landfill. But just saying that there's various different reasons for certain materials being prone to be good for recycling and some not so much. With EcoSpirits as a company, we can see and we can actually deliver on a lot of the single-use waste reduction. The numbers over here are taken from all sorts of different markets we have averaged out. You'll see further down that we actually collaborated with Deloitte and Circle, another agency auditor from France, to actually help us create how we calculate these numbers, etc. But we as well looking at reduction of 60 to 90% of a carbon emission. That is very much based on, is that product produced at a place where it's as well consumed, or is the product produced like a gin in UK and then consumed in Australia, right? That's the difference between the 60 and 90. That's what such a vast a difference. And so if I kind of combine everything what I said today as just so far together, what is EcoSpirits in a nutshell? What we are trying to achieve? As I said, we are developing, manufacturing, and selling hardware, and our goal is to try to help the industry to transition from linear distribution, meaning point A product is created, put in a bottle, put in a cardboard box, palletized, shipped on the other side of the world, and go into the 15 different warehouses, then delivered to a bar, makes 15 margaritas, and in 20 minutes it's chucked away and never used again. Linear distribution. Moving to what we call the circular distribution, and it means that it actually can come back and be refilled over and over and over, and the glass is not thrown away right away. We're not saying to kill glass at all. The opposite. Our actually eco tote, which we call our major piece of equipment, is actually made out of glass. So we are not haters on the glass, not at all. We're just saying that it would be pretty cool if we can look at a way how a glass can be reused. And we are not reinventing the wheel here. It's a very old traditional way. If you look at anything before World War II, a lot of people at home would have carafes, demijohns, etc., which would be made out of glass, and they would be actually taken back into local winery or brewery, etc., and that's where they would be refilled with liquor and taken home, cleaned, sanitized, and then brought back. The way how this worked in the real life is something what I want to touch on next. But I just wanted to say, is there any questions so far, or should we leave them all to the end? It doesn't matter to me. I've presented this once or twice before, so you should not cut my chain of thought, but it's up to you guys.
Yeah, we usually do it end, but if anyone has questions and wants to ask now, feel free. I kind of had a
All right.
I had a quick
Oh
one.
yeah, go ahead.
Was there like a specific moment when you were working in hospitality that made you want to switch to like a zero waste company or
It I don't recall the moment when it was about ecospirits. I do recall the moment when I was um to use a nice word, upset that we paid for two different bins and divided the waste into two different bins. And then at 4 a.m., we would see how that one same truck would collect both bins into a same truck and it would be all mixed up. So I think that that was one of the points where we questioned why all of this is happening and where the scam is, if there is a scam, or how does this all work.
yes. Feel that. Thank you.
You're good. And so moving into the real world, we realized very quickly, being a bar operators, that even us ourselves, we would not want to, or we are very prone to, you can use the word allergic to changes, right? And the world of hospitality is a very fine and thin margins, if you will. And so everyone's kind of hustling to fill the seats at their restaurants and bars, etc. And they focus really on that part. And so anyone coming to them and trying to change anything is hard. It's a high and steep hill to climb, if you will. And so we very quickly realized that if we are owed to be successful in this endeavor, bringing a change to very old industry, we need to really make sure that we try to do it as easy as possible. And so we basically developed the technology based around the current system. And so in every country where we operate around the world, we are 20 plus, almost 30 countries. We have what we call the license operator. That is a partner of ours who actually purchased the technology from us and a license to operate the technology. And we partner with them, provide them all of the equipment, trainings, software support, engineering support, commercial support, etc. And then they actually then start the bottling line, if you will, we call it eco plant, in the particular country. Then that license operator partners with brand partners, which in the United States or North America, you would call the suppliers, people who produce the liquor, the brand owners, right? The Smirnoff, the Tanquerays, the Takamakaram, the any local liquor of the world. And these guys provide the liquid to license operator. License operator packages it. I'll show you in a minute how that actually works on the end of the slide. And then when it's packaged, it's then delivered to another partner called channel partner, which you could call distributors, the wholesalers, people who actually then deliver from a warehouse to the business, to the operator of the hotel, bar, or restaurant. And then obviously we need to partner with the hotel, bars, or restaurant, the operator. So then you can see here on the bottom the venue partners. Um, the business model here works very simply. The brand partners and chiller partners are uh, paying certain fees. It varies again in different countries, the business model, but there are fees on their end to be part of the system. The venue partner is the one who has the free ride, if you will, because they are the end user who then actually use the brand. Now, the good piece here is that, again, us as the operators ourselves, we wanted to look at it really from three aspects. One, let's bring something what can actually lower waste. That was the number one element. But at the same time, we know that the margins are thin, and so we didn't want to bring anything what would actually rise a cost. So we wanted to develop something what Bill Gates called no premium, no green premiums, if you will. And so we want to develop something what will not be more expensive. We all learned from a straw world that we paid 3 cents for a plastic one. And then we all of a sudden were supposed to paying 85 cents for a paper straw, which didn't work. So we wanted to bring something, to the aspect of that, it's not going to raise the cost for anyone, including the brand partners, channel partners, and everyone included. And we wanted to make it relevant for the operator that it's not pain in the lower back to operate, to use, right? The bars needs to be fast. They can't lose time. They can't employ another person to operate a system, etc., because that's more cost for them and more time lost rather than service. And so we developed this with those three elements, and the idea of we try to fit it into existing system. And so the way how that and worked out was that being out of Singapore, where we started, we obviously started with Southeast Asia, then moved into a different part of Asia Pacific. 2020, December 9th, 2019, I moved to Europe. I'm European, born and bred in Europe. That was easiest for me with my passport to do so. Literally 8 weeks later, the world shut down because of COVID. And so it was an interesting period of time for us to try to launch new technology in Europe, but we prevailed and we have launched now Italy, Spain, Portugal, UK, Denmark, etc., Germany. And in 2022, we have launched in United States, in Miami. Now we are in Florida, California, Nevada, and Chicago. And we are available all around different parts of Caribbean, similarly to what Singapore is, small island, having a problem with waste, especially places like Dominican Republic, Curacao, etc., where 90% GDP is produced by tourism that produce a lot of waste. They have no space to store any waste, so this is very welcome and helpful. And we just recently, it's not even updated here on this slide, just recently launched Argentina and about to launch Colombia. And here is just a quick look, closer look to where we are in North America. And here is now the real look into how we actually process the liquid. So the whole idea, as I told you guys, that every licensed operator has the eco plant. The eco plant is think of it as a normal bottling line. If you walk into any distillery or co-packing business, they would have a bottling line for the miniatures, for the 750s, for the handles, right, the 1.75 liters, etc. And you would look right, and there would be this green box, and there would be an eco plant, and that's our bottling line for our eco totes, for our format. The good news is that doesn't matter what brand goes into EcoTote, the EcoTote stays the same. It's just a sliding label which goes in and out to make sure that we know what brands is in there. And so the EcoPlant as a bottling line can be very much more simplified. It doesn't have to be complicated, long, expensive, very long turnaround between brands process because it's always the same package. Doesn't have a different neck, doesn't have a different label, doesn't have a different closure. It's always the same. The liquid from the suppliers arrives in IBCs or UN1H1 drums, the 220 liter, 55-gallon drums, so 1,000-liter IBCs from the distillery. So let's say that there is, for example, Los Arcos, which is agave product from Mexico, from Tequila Town, arrives to Miami in 1,000-liter tank. There it's repackaged into ecototes. The ecototes are palletized onto a pallet, same as any other case of 6 bottles of alcohol would be palletized, shrink wrapped, and then sent to the distributor. We work with Southern Glacier Wine and Spirits in Vegas. We work with 21 Wine and Spirits, Park Streets, and others in Florida, and so on. And then from the actual warehouse, the bar or restaurant normally places an order, and it's just the extension of line. So let's say that, for example, Control Liqueur, which is in our package in Vegas for all of the margaritas, they can still order through Southern Glacier, let's say that T-Mobile Arena, who we work with as a stadium, they can order Contro in a bottle for the back bar and for the bartenders to pour, and there's no change of the visibility from the brand perspective and from the customers sitting at the bar and enjoying their margaritas. But they have a margarita on a tap, or they have a margarita in slushy machine, or they have a margarita pre-batch because they have a big events where the margarita needs to move very fast. And that is actually made out of Control coming in the actual EcoTote, which I'll show you in a minute. And so what it means is that the brand itself, when it comes to portfolio listing, they would still have the Control 750 ml, they would have a Control 1 liter, but now they would have Control EcoToad 1.75 liter as a format. Los Arcos agave distillate would have 750 ml bottle and would have a Los Arcos as a format. And then the actual then the actual operator decides, all right, I need a case for my back bar and for the bartender to use, but then I know that I need 3 cases because I'm going to be using it for slushy machines, cocktails on tap, pre-batching, etc. In various markets around the world, like UK and Italy, etc., through our tracking system, because we actually are able to track the ecotodes, how they move, and a batch numbers of liquid, which is inside of ecotode, they actually already allow us to as well to re-pour the liquid into the original bottle. But again, that is various regulatory jurisdictions where we can and where we cannot do so. And when the ecotode is emptied, again, for example, in the T-Mobile Arena, the procurement person sends an email and say, "Hey guys, I need another 5 ecototes for next week, and I have 4 ecototes empty." When the driver comes in, they pick up the empties, drop off the full ones. The empties go back into the eco plant, which sits in Vegas or sits in Miami or sits in etc. And there it's clean, sanitized, refilled, resealed, rescanned into our system, and goes around again. Each of the ecototes can do an actual 100 at minimum closed loops, although in Singapore and other places where are the oldest markets, we already do have ecotodes which are 120, 130, close to 150 loops in its life cycle. So we're looking at with the 4.5 liter format, which is 6 times 750. So again, we designed it in a way so it's easy for the operators to understand, okay, now I need 3 cases of tequila a week. Well, if I just order 3 ecototes, it's the same amount of liquid. I don't need to change my Excel sheets in my ordering platform, um, and all my formulas in my Excel sheet. And so if you look at it from the 4.5 liter perspective, every ecotode can save up to 1,000 glass bottles in its lifetime before it retires. And if you look at the amount of glass per pallet of a product, it's roughly around 600 bottles. So we're looking at almost 2 pallets of glass and cardboard boxes and closures removed from the cycle, um, because of a one ecotode. Now, the beauty is, if you look at the actual way how everything's costed, the beauty is that the bottle, the label, is most expensive part on the actual product. And so the liquid is not, I'm not saying that is not quality or anything at all. It's just the nature of material used and shipping of all of the components. The actual liquid is not the most expensive part. And so the way how we worked it out, and if you remember 5, 10 minutes ago, I was mentioning that we really wanted to do something which is commercially viable, that it actually doesn't cost more. Through all of the savings on logistics, shipping in bulk, 1,000 liter in IBC, it's the same amount of a space in container as 1 pallet, but 1,000 liter creates 2 plus pallets of a final product. So you're saving on a shipping, you're saving on all of the packaging because you don't need to actually produce all of the packaging, or not as much at least, because it doesn't get be thrown away every single time. And then the waste removal of it is pretty obvious. I think that partially why I think we are pretty popular when it comes to the consumer, people who sits at a bar, is because it's so simple to understand. There's no trees planting, offsetting, or anything like that complicated, although still very good initiative to do. And we've done fair bit of our tree planting, and we still do. I'm just saying that from the folks who sit at a bar, it's very simple to understand, especially if it's my generation and older who remembers Milkman or returnable beer bottles. It's very simple to comprehend how this can actually save overnight a wasteful behavior. Here is just a very quickly, just want to show you, we have a different pouring mechanisms which we developed. They all Wi-Fi connected. They have automatic sensors. They scan the ecotode as soon as you put the ecotode inside of it. And that records it in our system, so we can actually know where the ecotode is with the actual address of the venue. So we know actually where depletions happens, if you will. If you can see here on the bottom, it says NFC verified refill. The NFC is the same technology you have in your credit card, touchless thing. it scans a special label on a bottle, and if the ecotote inside scanned that it's tried and true vodka, like in this picture, and I put tried and true vodka in front of it, it will allow me to refill the bottle. If I put absolute bottle in front of it, I can press as many buttons as I want, and it will not fill anything because the NFC will tell each other that it's a different bottle to what the product is inside. But that is the reason why I kept it in this presentation here, just to tell you guys that we spend a lot of time in developing the intelligence side of the circularity, which brings a lot of really cool data in terms of um, liquid movement and then consumptions and etc. This is the software behind it, which you receive as if you partner with us as a part of the program, that you have your own platform with dashboard and you can actually see where your liquid is and warehousing statistics, etc. Here is the quantifying of our impact. As I told you, Deloitte and Silker, but both our sustainability consultants, they actually worked with us on fully developing a calculator which can actually show you per brand, per region, how much of a carbon emissions you saving by using EcoTote versus single-use glass bottle. It's been vetted by one of the largest, if not the largest, producers and brand owners in the world, and allowed to be used for their official marketing communications, if you will. So the calculations are pretty correct. And I'll leave you with a beautiful example we have done in Singapore, just to show you a real world example. I don't know if you guys ever heard of a Singapore sling. It's a pretty delicious but pretty boozy lemonade from tropics. It was developed in 1915, according to old books, in the Long Bar in the Raffles Hotel in Singapore. It has many different ingredients. It has gin, curacao, cherry liqueur, etc. And so we made a deal with Raffles Hotel when we were launching back in 2018 officially, that we brought every single ingredient for the Singapore sling in EcoTote, including bitters, including other stuff. We helped them to not raise the price by doing so, when it comes to cost of goods sold per cocktail. So we delivered on the commercial side. We didn't raise the price to the actual distributors and suppliers either. It stayed the same, but we were able to actually reduce their waste per year by 40,000 glass bottles. 4 shipping containers of glass was saved every year since 2018, plus minus during a COVID, because Singapore had very strict quarantines. Um, but because it's the national symbol and every single tourist who comes to Singapore has to go to Long Bar, they make 1,200 of these cocktails a day on average. That's why these numbers are staggering, obviously. But just a real world example of what eco spirits can produce with no really any change. The bottles were still on the back bar. The bartenders still had bottles in their hands as well. It really is, we were trying to deliver something that the experience doesn't change. And as I said, all of the other aspect. Latest development with us is that we are available with Bacardi on Carnival Cruise Lines. I can't share any numbers here, sadly, but I can tell you it's in thousands when it comes to bottles and tons of carbon emissions saved. But if you travel on Carnival Cruise Line, Carnival, for those who don't know, is the world's largest commercial cruise line in the world with 29 ships. If you travel on any of these ships outside of Miami, which is the world's busiest cruise line ship port in the world, and you drink Bacardi on the ship, you will be 80% of the time drinking it outside of the liquid will be delivered to the ship in ecototes. And we've been running it now for 2 years. Couple of awards we have won over the years, and with that, I will stop talking and open to questions if you guys have any.